You never said the last thing you needed to say. Some part of you never stopped trying to. Maybe it was a parent who died before you got to ask the one question you'd been circling for years. Maybe it was someone you loved for a decade and then didn't, and the last conversation you had was about something stupid, whose turn it was to call the landlord, what to order for dinner, and neither of you knew it was the last one. Maybe it's a version of yourself, the one you were before something broke you a little, and you never got to finish becoming him. Doesn't matter who. What matters is the sentence that never got to land. Here's the thing your mind does that you never agreed to. It doesn't let go of what's unfinished. It holds on to the open ones. The conversations that got cut off mid-sentence. The arguments that never resolved. The goodbyes that weren't actually goodbyes. Just silence, with no warning attached. Finished things fade. Unfinished things stay loud. For years, for no reason you ever chose. Most people think they're remembering the person. They're not. They're remembering the gap. You built a life that looked finished. You got up. You went to work. You smiled when it counted. You answered, "I'm fine." So many times it stopped feeling like a lie even to you. From the outside, nothing was open. Nothing was loose. But somewhere underneath all of it, a sentence was still hanging in the air, waiting for someone who was never coming back to hear it. That's the cruelty of it. You don't get to choose what stays open. Your mind doesn't care if the door was shut from the outside by them without warning. It only cares whether the conversation got its ending, and most conversations that actually mattered to you didn't end. They just stopped. Someone walked away mid-sentence. Or you did. Or life did it for both of you, and neither of you got the closing line you'd been quietly preparing for years without admitting it. So you find yourself rehearsing things you'll never say out loud. Mid-shower, mid-drive, 3 in the morning, staring at a ceiling that has heard more unsent speeches than anyone you've ever actually spoken to. You run the argument again. You finally say the thing you didn't say. You win it, this time, in your head, in a room that doesn't exist anymore, to a person who isn't listening and never will be. You tell yourself, it's because you miss them. It's not that simple. You miss the ending. You miss the version of the story where it made sense, where it got to close properly instead of just trailing off into silence and assumption. That's what your mind keeps reaching for, not the person, the punctuation. And there's a second reason some of these stay louder than others. It's not the people who were consistently cold who haunt you. Consistency closes a loop. Your mind can file it away clean. It's the ones who gave you warmth and then distance, attention and then silence, unpredictably, who never let you build a stable picture of them. The same pull that keeps someone at a slot machine isn't the payout. It's not knowing when the next one's coming. Your mind doesn't fixate on people who were reliably cold. It fixates on the ones who were warm just often enough to keep the file open. That's why it's never the simple heartbreaks that follow you for years. It's the complicated ones. The ones where you got just enough good to make the bad feel like an exception instead of a pattern. Your mind is still running the math on someone who already stopped being a variable a long time ago. This is why some memories don't fade, no matter how much time passes. It's not that they were more important than everything else. It's that they were left open and inconsistent. And your mind doesn't know how to file away a question mark. A finished memory gets filed away. An unfinished one keeps demanding a little bit of you every single day in exchange for nothing. You used to think that meant you were weak, that a stronger man would have let it go by now, that if you were really as composed as you act, this wouldn't still be running in the background years later, uninvited at the worst possible hours. It doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're honest with yourself about something most people spend their whole lives burying under noise. Under new relationships entered too quickly, under busyness they mistake for healing, under everyone else's advice to just move on, as if moving on was ever something you could decide to do in a single moment, instead of something that has to actually finish happening inside you first, on its own schedule, with or without your permission. Marcus Aurelius wrote it plainer than anyone ever has. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. He wasn't talking about them. He was talking about the part of you still negotiating with a door that's already closed. The unfinished doesn't disappear. It just goes quiet. And quiet isn't the same as gone. Quiet is unfinished business that's learned to wait. It shows up in who you trust now, and how fast. In how quickly you brace for an ending before anything's even gone wrong, because some part of you is still bracing for the last one that never got its warning. In the way you sometimes love people a little less than you're capable of, because some part of you is still finishing a sentence with someone who isn't in the room anymore and never will be again. Here's the part nobody tells you. You don't need them to come back and finish it. You don't need the apology, the explanation, the version of events that finally makes everything make sense. You're not actually waiting for them. You never really were. You're waiting for permission to close something that was never going to be closed from the outside, because the only person who ever had that authority was you, and you've been waiting for someone else to use it on your behalf. So stop waiting for the conversation to end. End it yourself, not with them, with you. If something's still running in your head on a loop you never agreed to, you're not the only one carrying something like this. Some of us are still here, still finishing our own sentences, quietly. You don't need their closure. You just need to stop leaving the door open for someone who already left the room. This is where you leave the door shut. Stay, if this is the kind of quiet you understand.